Long before Europeans ever set foot on the island, indigenous peoples lived in Barbados. The earliest were the Arawaks, later followed by the Caribs. They lived off the land and sea, farming cassava, fishing, and crafting tools from shells and bones. But by the time the Europeans arrived in the 1500s, the indigenous population had mysteriously disappeared, likely due to conflict, disease, or migration. Although the Portuguese and Spanish briefly passed by the island, it was the British who settled Barbados in 1627. They claimed the island for King James I, and that's where Barbados's modern history begins. Unlike many other Caribbean islands, Barbados stayed under British control the entire time, earning it the nickname Little England. In the 1640s, everything changed. Planters discovered that sugarcane grew extremely well in Barbados. With sugar came wealth, and with it, the rise of massive plantations. But sugar was brutal work. So the British began importing enslaved Africans by the thousands to work the fields. By the late 1600s, the population of Barbados was mostly enslaved people. The island became one of the most profitable colonies in the world, but at a devastating human cost. Enslaved people lived under horrific conditions, long hours, cruel punishments, and no rights. But they resisted in big and small ways, through culture, music, rebellion, and survival. Throughout the 18th and early 19th centuries, there were frequent uprisings and acts of resistance. The most famous came in 1816, called the Bussa Rebellion, led by an enslaved man named Bussa. Though the rebellion was crushed, it became a symbol of resistance and is honored in Barbados to this day. Finally, after decades of pressure and activism, slavery was abolished in 1834 across the British Empire. But life didn't suddenly become easy. Freed people faced economic hardship, landlessness, and social discrimination. For over a century after emancipation, Barbados remained a British colony. The rich white elite still held most of the land, money, and political power. But things slowly began to shift. Education spread, a black middle class emerged, political activism grew. In the 1930s, economic hardship led to labor protests, and a new generation of leaders rose up, including Grantley Adams, who pushed for reform. By 1951, universal adult suffrage, the right to vote, was granted. And in 1961, Barbados gained internal self-government. The path to independence was now open. On November 30th, 1966, Barbados became an independent nation within the Commonwealth. Errol Barrow, one of the most respected political leaders in Caribbean history, became the first prime minister. Barrow emphasized education, healthcare, and development. Under his leadership, Barbados grew as a democratic, stable, and prosperous island nation. Even after independence, Barbados remained a constitutional monarchy with the British monarch as head of state. But in 2021, that changed. On the 55th anniversary of its independence, Barbados officially became a republic, removing Queen Elizabeth II as head of state and swearing in its first president, Sandra Mason. It was a historic and symbolic step, a declaration that the people of Barbados fully owned their destiny. Barbados' history is rich and layered. It's the story of an island that fueled empires with sugar, endured the horrors of slavery, rose through struggle, and became a modern republic. Today, it stands proud not just for its beaches, but for its bravery, resilience, and culture.